Hello, everyone! I am at the lowest point of my life because I'm reviewing Fate Prisma Illya, the Prisma earpicking incident ASMR album. I'm reviewing this because, one, it's canon, and two, it's content. So let's go through what this is together, discuss is it good? Let's discuss, is it worth selling your soul for? And does it give me, quote, the tingles? So, to get things out of the way, this is a 2,200 yen release, that's about 20 US dollars, on mimical.com, which is a website I've never heard of, but it is, as it says at the bottom, thankfully Google translated it into English, the #1 ASMR and ear-tickling audio drama website. And it's full of ASMR albums, both ones independently published by VTubers and just other people. There's ones by famous voice actors putting on characters, and there's even official ones of shows like Uzaki-chan, Strike Witches, Nekopara, Ikitosen, and all of those sorts of shows that you would look at and go, yeah, that would have an official ASMR album there. Done by the official voice cast, and quite frequently also apparently written by the actual showrunners. So this here is a 4-track album. Now, the first and final tracks are not ASMR. They are fairly standard, like audio drama with music there, but the middle two are binaural ASMR tracks. You might be wondering what ASMR is. If you are, wow, how are you on the internet? I feel like that's unavoidable. But what it is it's audio meant to give you feelings. It's meant to give you a emotional feedback from being close, from being realistic, or for just being extra horny, which, thankfully, this one isn't. It's mostly about the feelings that are evoked from it. Binaural means that it is, when they record it, they use a microphone that is, it has like kind of pair of ears it looks like, and there's a microphone on either side, and it does allow them to do like 3D audio with them. So you do want to be breaking out the good headphones for it. So before we begin, I do want to give some context. So I've never been against ASMR. I'm not one of those people who first heard ASMR and was like, "Bleh, stupid stuff." No, I was actually understanding of the appeal of it, but I never really tried it beyond listening to like shit posts and, sometimes looking up like Nico Robin, pets your head and says everything will be all right ASMR to like send to my friends and stuff. Not to mention, if you look up ASMR on my channel, you'll see I've done ASMR a couple times, again, as shit posts because I was Funky Kong during it. Another thing, though, is that I have had my ears cleaned before in the style of this ASMR track here. I have, including done the lap pillow and the blowing and the whispering. I will not get into further details about why or when, but I will say it does feel good. And it is something that you come out feeling clean from. Like, your body will feel like it is loosened of all of its fluids, and you will feel nice and clean and fresh. It is something I recommend for people. If you ever have the chance, which I don't know when you would have a chance, besides going to Japan, really? I don't think these exist in many North American places or even Europe, but if you do somehow get the chance, I do say I recommend it. And I did listen to this in what I've been told are the optimal ASMR conditions, which is lights out in a comfortable spot, in this case, bed, with high quality binaural, because there's left and right, there's stereo, of course there's stereo, but I got some AirPods in, and I had the noise canceling on, so I was in for what I believe to be the optimal experience for it. So let's talk a bit about what is actually in the official Fate ASMR album. So track 1 begins, and it starts with a sleepover between Miu and Ilia. I would say for those who are of the know, this would probably take place between seasons 2 and 2.5. Definitely can't be anything beyond that because reasons. But it is by the writer of both The Oath in the Snow as well as Lick Nameless Girl, which are the newest movies. So you know it is the good stuff because those movies are really, really, really good. So Miu and Ilia are having a sleepover, and they can't find Ruby or Sapphire, which, considering their VAs are not listed, I just assumed it was a way to get them out of the plot. You know, they're not here. Normally they're always with them. And what ends up happening is that through talking to each other and saying like, oh, Ruby's been doing some weird stuff lately, they end up warping to a parallel world, all because of one of Ruby's experiments going wrong. This ends track 1. It's 3 minutes. It has some light music from the show to go with it. It's just to set up why the Prisma earpick incident is occurring. So we move on to track 2, which is Ilia's alternate world. So Ilia and Miu are both transported, but they are sent to different places. As we reach track 2, we assume the role of the character that we are meant to embody. We are a Emiya Shiro. Not the Emiya Shiro, not even that Emiya Shiro, and not that Emiya Shiro, but we are this parallel universe's Emiya Shiro. And we are in the middle of a soft room, just chilling on the ground, I assume, and Ilia appears behind us. And we can tell she appears behind us because the binaural audio works wonders. You can hear in a 3D space. When they're behind you, it sounds different from if they're in front of you or to the side of you. It truly is like VR for the ears, where the whole space around you becomes something you're aware of through just audio. So she starts by, of course, doing what every ASMR thing does. She runs around screaming.
部屋の様子がちょっとおかしい。あ、ほんとだ！おかしい！一見すると私の部屋っぽいけど、微妙に違う。窓もドアもないよ。これじゃ当てられないじゃん。
About being stuck there in this soft room with Shiro, and it's very not ASMR, because if you know Ilya's voice actress, you know that she kind of goes wild when she goes wild. So she's running around screaming, which is hilarious to hear, but not really relaxing. When she eventually finds a piece of paper, which you can tell from her loudly picking up the piece of paper and holding it in her hand right next to your ear, that says, to escape this parallel world created by an experiment gone wrong, Ilia has to, quote, act sisterly and do earpick cleaning on this world's Emiya Shiro. Now, the album has the title, The Prisma Earpick Incident, so I thought, oh god, no, are they gonna like puncture their eardrums or something? But for Ilia, this is no big deal. She says very calmly, this is easy peasy. I've been the one doing Shiro's ear cleanings for years, and this is second nature for her. She does redefine detail that it has to be done lap pillow style because, again, act sisterly, and she's a little bit flustered there, but she moves towards you and says to lay on your side, and in fact, she even basically says lie on your side, and then you hear like some rustling movement, sort of like a ding to turn the page, like back in the old books you'd read in elementary school. And I myself followed suit. It is worth mentioning, I know barely enough passable Japanese, I could understand 30% of what was being said, but instructions and that I was all good with there. And from this, we get into the majority of the CD's content. It's the sound of your ears being cleaned with some light talk in between. If you've never had your ears cleaned, it sounds sort of like a fuzzy pipe cleaner going into your ear and spinning around a bit and going out, which to some of you might be like, oh, that sounds lovely, and some of you might be saying, I want to die, that sounds horrible. Much like in real life, I assume this is something that some people like me, I like it. I enjoy the feeling of having someone go in and put a big stick in my ear with like a little cotton swab at the end and just spinning it around and then pulling out all that stuff. I love that feeling, but I know for some people it would drive them insane. There's also some light scratching, which is another thing that's part of the process where, think of it like a tiny little claw that goes in and just scratches out the wax, right? Some dabbing with a cotton ball, they kind of lightly just on it, and then from that they dab to try and get the stuff. And finally, the all-important finale, which is like super not hygienic but is classic, which is doing a final little blow, a little puff of air to get rid of the now sort of floating around wax there. And I gotta say, they got it. This is very accurate to the point where it actually felt like it was happening to me. Yeah, the binaural audio is so strong that it felt like I was getting my ears clean. Minus the fact in real life, they're usually not as gentle. Because, of course they're gentle. It's not actually happening to me. In real life, sometimes you get someone who goes a little bit too far in and might spin around too much. And one time I got my ears cleaned at the same time as I got a foot rub, and that stimulation of someone picking my brain while also very roughly massaging my feet. It was two people at once at this spa. That was, I thought I was going to explode. Like, you're going to make me take a human body screenshot, but also it's just too much stimulation at once. So yeah, right? That said, like, it was mind-blowing how accurate it was. I don't know how they did it, but I felt it. Like, the audio illusions for this are really scary. There was a point where I actually had to open my eyes and like just look around and be like, am I alone? Because some of the moments involve movement. And as, you hear this character start to walk around you, especially on something soft like a bed where you hear the movement in this soft room, I was like, oh my God, like, is there someone with me? I had to look around. And the best thing I can describe it is, it's like the first time I tried VR, when I had Saber sit next to me in Grand Order VR, and it actually felt like someone was in the room with me. And I felt like super uncomfortable at first because I'm not someone who, has people around them all the time, at least not in that sort of way. And so it was a little scary. It's very similar to that, but purely audible, right? So as this goes on, Ilia talks quite a bit. She mostly does some little small facts, like she talks about how Sella and Lisrit would be the ones to do this when she was little, and that as she got older, she'd be the one to do it for Shiro all the time. It's very much just small talk, but it's really relaxing, and once you're out of that first part where she's running around screaming, it does become very relaxing. An interesting thing, though, is that because you don't have characters that are actually doing this, it's all in your head, it didn't sound like Ilia was talking to me as much as it was Mai Katawaki, which is her voice actress. Being separated from the animation, she sounds more natural, and because it's her sort of natural voice and not this voice that's kind of constrained by a little anime girl on the screen, it did come across more like the adult that's voicing her is doing this rather than the character, which is a good thing for a number of reasons, of course. And it's actually relaxing in canon too, because as you're getting this done, she says, "Oh, Shiro, you've fallen asleep," after you flipped your other side, and she does your other ear there. So she says she'll work on you, kind of lightly because you're asleep, and she does. She kind of slows down and does it a bit quieter, a bit slower, and eventually she just stops. And then she says, like a whisper under her breath, "Now that Oni-chan is asleep, nothing is stopping me from getting a close look at his face," and she says that this is her reward as a sister. And this moment actually freaked me out, because she pulls herself close to you to get a good look at your face, and you hear just this soft breathing noise. Not like a blowing, but just a natural, soft breathing. And it's like on your face, on your neck, and oh my god, I felt like there was someone in the room with me. Like, it was a little scary. I mean, I can understand where if, you're going in and that this is coming, this is like the best moment, right? This is like, oh man, it feels like someone's in the room with me and it's so relaxing, we can just chill out, but there's no one in the room with me, so I don't gotta worry, right? Like, this should be the moment that is the nicest one, but I didn't know it was coming, and it kind of freaked me out just a little bit there. So after she's done both her ears and she wakes you up, she says thank you and asks if she can do it again sometime. She says, "Oh, now that my mission is complete, a portal should return me to my world." And sure enough, we start to hear the sound of magic, and she says, "Oh, I don't want to leave, right? I wanted Oni-chan to be the one to do it for me now." And blah, blah, blah. And so she gets pulled into the portal screaming. And again, when Ilya's screaming, it's not what I would call ASMR. It's funny, even with my, again, barely passing knowledge of Japanese, which then after I went through it all, I had to run it through with some translator help to try and figure out what was being said. But for the most part, I would say the beginning and ending of these tracks are not ASMR, but that middle part is. And so at about 14 and a half minutes through track 2, we are done with that one and move on to track 3. So track 3 opens with now Miu appearing in another parallel world with another parallel Shiro. And unlike Ilia, who runs around the room screaming as loud as she can about the fact she's stuck in this room, she's very calm, but she's at the far side of the other room and sort of pacing back and forth. And again, you can hear this thanks to the binaural audio, which is quite powerful. She's walking around and she finds the piece of paper, which again says, to escape, you have to do ear cleaning and be like a perfect little sister. She does say some interesting stuff that I would say are some later Prisma Illya spoilers, so I won't get into them here. But for those of you who are some Prisma Illya lore heads, let's just say your questions do get either asked or answered depending on what you have. But the paper basically says just do what Ilia does and you should be fine. Now, she's a lot more apprehensive than Ilia. You can even see this in simply the track length being an extra 5 minutes longer than the previous one. And that is either spent being cautious about doing this with this other Shiro, or simply talking a lot. See, Miu notes that she's never cleaned someone's ears before, but she has studied it from her time with Luvia. She talks about how she has books on it, because of course you do. And this goes into like the main gimmick of Miu's tracks, and that is she is a encyclopedia while haphazardly cleaning your ears. And it's a toss-up. Ilia has what I would say not the best voice for ASMR, honestly. Like, it's not bad when she's actually getting into it, but every time around it, it's not the best, but she does everything perfectly. Well, meanwhile, Miu has like this perfect tone and voice for ASMR, but is out here just being a nerd emoji. And she doesn't go in like as deep into your ears or clean them as thoroughly, but I think like this is the intent. It's to make it so that one is not better than the other. But, like, it gets to the point where Miu's talking about things like, oh, did you know there's no need for humans to do ear cleaning, as our bodies naturally clean out the excess fluids during natural cleansing cycles? Which, like, dang, that's a mood killer. It's a good thing I only have a tertiary knowledge of Japanese, because that would just ruin the situation. And a lot of it is her just going like, what do I do next? All right, I do this, and then doing it. It's slower. It's a lot more deliberate. It's clearly someone who hasn't run through the cycles and is someone who is doing something that they've just studied for the first time, which, hey, that might do it for some of you for sure. I personally think Ilya's is handled a lot better. There's even moments where she goes like, I don't know what to do. What does Ilia normally talk to you about? And there's a pause for you to respond, which, like, if you do be a weirdo like me and actually respond out loud, one, she won't actually go with what you say, but two, you'll feel like a psychopath, and thinking back on it, you'll be like, why the frick did I do that? But she won't respond to that and will instead say, oh, you know, you talked about your memories, which, yeah, it was not what I said, but whatever, fine. She notes that she doesn't really have many memories to talk about, but she'll note to, you know, try and think of some for the future so that the next time she does this, she will have something to talk about. Another sort of funny / interesting moment is when, again, this Shiro falls asleep. But instead of Ilia being a weirdo and going in for this, like, up-close face watching, instead Miu uses magic to create a magnifier to help her see right into the ear canal and, like, cheat to get it all out. She says, I'm a beginner, I should be allowed to use this. And the funny thing is, this actually straight up mirrors something that a lot of professional ear cleaners do. See, I've gone for more, shall we say, casual ear cleaning, and I've gone for the professional ones. And the professional ones have a lot more tools. One of them is basically like a little magnifier that you attach to an iPhone, and you can, show the person who's getting their ears cleaned, like, what's in there. And this was very important because I was getting my ears cleaned and she used the attachment and she showed it to me and she said that, hey, you have fungus growing in your ears. It turned out, yeah, I had an ear infection, which is like gross, horrible, don't like that. I have mycophobia, do not like anything involving, funguses or mold of the sort, but now I could go to the doctor. I got some acid to pour in my ears, which burnt, but hey, it actually managed to fix it, and so it was worth it. So just an example of sort of like, hey, like that's a real thing, even though I'm sure people who aren't well-versed in ear cleaning probably think that this is just a weird thing for her to do. So as it goes on, she goes from like, oh, and this is a real quote, according to the literature I've studied, 88% of all ear cleaning is done with lap pillows, so I will acquiesce to the majority. She goes from that to like talking about, oh, like I understand now the cultural significance and that like the vibrations of talk up so close create some strong bonds. So she does change as it goes on over the roughly 20-minute length. But for the most part, it's about the same as what you get with Ilia, just pick your preference. So after cleaning both sides, she too is swept away into another portal after saying thank you to this Shiro who she will never see again, and notes that, she would like to do this, again, sometime in the future with some more training, and thus ends track 3 of 4. So for track 4, the finale, which is only 2.5 minutes long, it ends with Miu and Ilia waking back up in that shared sleepover room, and they both talk about this weird world that they visited, and they say like, it was weird, but we both accomplished our goals, and even though it was embarrassing, we feel good for doing it, and it's something that we want to do in the future. Despite all that, Ruby and Sapphire are still gone, and they're wondering where they are. Suddenly, when going to open up the window to look for Ruby, another portal appears. You hear the sound of it, and Ilia alone, this time, is whisked to another world. This time, a world that looks like their bathroom, with a bathtub and an open window, which is a reference to the events of the first episode of Prisma Illya. And there she sees, oh no, it's another Emyashiro, and he's in the bath! And there's a note beside from Ruby that says, uh-oh, another experiment gone wrong. And this time you have to be sisterly and wash your brother's back to return to your world. And she screams, oh, Ruby, to the heavens. And thus ends the ASMR album. Whether this is a joke ending or something that will actually go forward for the second volume, we do not know, at least for now. So, one nice thing about the website there is that there are some user reviews at the bottom of the page. So Hojo gives it 5 stars and says they're impressed and are looking forward to the second and third installments, which I didn't even know would be coming until I, read that review. Will I listen to these too? Well, that's up to you guys to tell me if you're interested in hearing what happens in them and my review of, listening to this alone in a really sad sort of way. Another one, Suzuki gives it 5 stars and says it's cute and funny, which are words that mean something very different in English considering the subject matter. Thankfully, it's written in Japanese, so it is entirely a coincidence. Kento gives it 5 stars and says it can heal your soul thanks to the voice of the angels and notes its small price, which, I don't know, $20 for a 20-minute album? I guess it's not bad, but at the same time I also feel, oh no, it's about 40 minutes, never mind. I guess that's better, but still. Is that worth it? It's really up to you. But where do I stand on this? Well, I can firmly say I get it. It's relaxing. And it definitely felt more intimate than I expected, and it made me a bit uncomfortable, but I see the appeal of the genre for sure. It felt like my ears were being cleaned. I came out of that with the same feeling as when I got my ears cleaned, minus the fact that they're not actually cleaned, but the same, cleansed feeling. And that's pretty great. I might look further into more of them. Now, if I do, however, I feel like I'd probably go for ones that are based on, adults. Because, I have a little sister, and it could be a bit weird, right? There's a lot of Oni-chans thrown around, or Oni-san if you're Miyu. But it could have been a lot weirder, honestly. Prisma Illya itself gets a lot weirder at times. Oh, dear God. But this sticks to focusing on the wholesome elements of that, and that's pretty cool. So, honestly, could have been a lot worse for being attached to the Prisma Illya label. This is probably the most insane content I've covered on this channel, and I have no idea how this is going to go over. Whether this will become one of my most viewed stupid things, or whether this gets no views because people are like, what the frick, I don't even want to know about that's existence, right? I don't know how this is going to go. But hey, the Fate content hole is bigger and more varied than I ever expected. So, with that said, thank you all for listening to my own ASMR, kind of, not really. And hey, if you ever get the chance, go for an ear cleaning. It feels nice. Adios, guys.